I stared at my phone screen reading the message for the third time. The words didn't change, yet I kept wishing they would twist into something less brutal. Julia, it's best if you don't come to Vanessa's wedding. You'd ruin the mood. We want everything perfect for her special day. Mom. My own mother had typed that and pressed send without hesitation. I set my phone down on the desk at the Marine Biology Research Center, my fingers trembling slightly. Outside my window, the Seattle waterfront stretched gray and endless, mirroring the storm inside me. 29 years old, and somehow still the family disappointment. Daughter who chased coral reefs instead of a law degree, who wore sensible shoes instead of designer heels, who never quite fit their picture-perfect frame. Vanessa's wedding was 6 weeks away. My little sister, 3 years younger, had captured the man my parents dreamed of, a polished corporate finance executive with a trust fund and a flawless smile. Their engagement had been announced at the country club. The wedding? An elite vineyard near Portland, 200 guests, an orchestra, and a price tag that made my salary look like lunch money. And me? Officially uninvited. I grabbed my phone again and scrolled through the family group chat I'd been kicked out of 2 days ago. I only found out because my cousin Bethany accidentally sent me a screenshot while ranting about her bridesmaid dress. The chat was overflowing with excitement, flower choices, tasting menus, table arrangements, and not a single mention of me. My office door opened. Killian stepped in carrying 2 steaming coffees, rain dripping from his dark hair. One look at my face and he set the cups down gently. What happened? He asked. Killian worked in the oceanography department down the hall. We'd been dating 8 months, though my family had no clue. Why would they? They never cared to ask. I handed him my phone. He read the message, his jaw tightening. Your mother actually wrote this? Word for word? He asked, voice low with disbelief. He stopped himself, searching for a word that wasn't too sharp. Killian, raised in Dublin and still shocked by how casually cruel American families could be, didn't quite have the vocabulary for this level of betrayal. It's typical, I said quietly. This is how they've always treated me. He sat down in the chair, across from my desk. Tell me. So I did. I told him what it was like growing up as the daughter who never quite measured up, the spare child in a family that only ever celebrated the star. Vanessa had been the golden one from day one, prettier, more charming, effortlessly adored. She was the kind of person who lit up a room while I was the quiet shadow standing beside her. You're too serious, Julia, Mom would sigh. Why can't you be more like your sister? I told Killian about the time I won a national science competition at 16, and my parents missed the ceremony because Vanessa had a dance recital. About how they skipped my college graduation because they were helping her move into her first apartment. About how my published research on marine ecosystem preservation had been met with a distracted, "That's nice, honey," before Dad went back to bragging about Vanessa's latest promotion. Every achievement I've ever had is invisible to them, I said softly. But if Vanessa sneezes, they throw a parade. Killian reached across the desk, his hand warm around mine. You know this says everything about them and nothing about you, right? I wanted to believe him. I really did. But 3 decades of being treated like an afterthought had carved scars too deep to ignore. The worst part, I went on quietly, is that I don't even hate Vanessa. She's never meant to hurt me. She just lives in a bubble where everything falls perfectly into place. She doesn't understand why I can't just be happy for her always. Are you going to respond to your mother? He asked gently. I looked down at the message again. A part of me wanted to fire back something sharp, something that would cut deep enough to make her pause. But I knew better. She'd twist it around, call me dramatic, accuse me of overreacting. I'd be the difficult daughter again. No, I said finally. I'm not responding. Killian studied me for a long moment. What are you thinking? I exhaled slowly. I was thinking about all the years I'd spent trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. All the times I swallowed my pain and convinced myself that if I just worked harder, achieved more, they'd finally see me, but they never would. That message was my proof, clear, cold, undeniable. I'm thinking, I said, my voice steady now, that I'm done caring what they think. Killian smiled a slow, proud smile that told me he understood exactly what that meant, but there was a flicker of caution in his eyes. Should I be worried about that look on your face? He asked, what look? The one that shows up right before you solve an impossible research problem, he said with a faint grin. The look that means you've stopped accepting the situation and started figuring out how to change it. I I laughed, unable to help it. He knew me too well. My phone buzzed again. This time the message was from Vanessa. Mom told me she uninvited you. I'm sorry, Jules, but honestly, it's probably for the best. The wedding's going to be really formal and elegant, and you know how awkward you get at those things. I just don't want anything to go wrong on my big day. I showed Killian the message. His expression darkened instantly. That's worse than your mother's, he said flatly. He was right. Mom's cruelty had always come from vanity and shallow priorities. But Vanessa's message, dressed up in fake kindness, cut deeper. It wasn't rage or hate. It was indifference. She truly believed I didn't belong in her perfect world. That evening, I sat in Killian's apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, watching ferries drift across the dark water. He was at the stove cooking something rich with garlic and white wine. The air smelled like comfort, like everything my childhood home never had. His apartment was warm, messy, in a charming way. Books stacked on the floor, plants climbing the windowsill, photos of faraway coastlines tacked to the wall. It was alive. Tell me about your family, I said suddenly. He looked up, surprised. You already know about them. Tell me again. He wiped his hands on a towel and came to sit beside me. Well, there's my ma'am who still calls every Sunday to make sure I'm eating real food. My da who sends photos of every fish he catches. And my 3 sisters who never let me forget I'm the baby, even though I'm 31. And they all came to your graduation, I said quietly. He smiled at the memory. Every last one of them. Flew all the way from Ireland, even though it nearly emptied their savings. Ma'am cried through the entire ceremony. Then they stayed 2 weeks, drove me completely mad, and I loved every minute of it. I leaned against his shoulder. That sounds nice. It is, he murmured, wrapping an arm around me. And you deserve that too, Julia. You deserve people who show up for you. We ate dinner while the city lights shimmered across the bay. Killian talked about his new project studying deep-sea thermal vents, his eyes lighting up as he explained the mysteries of the ocean floor. I told him about our team's latest findings on coral bleaching across the Pacific, and as we spoke, I realized this was what my family never understood. That my passion wasn't some childish hobby. It was purpose. It was me trying to make a difference in a world far bigger and more fragile than theirs. The research center had always felt more like home than the house I grew up in. The quiet hum of the labs, the smell of salt water and metal, the gentle rhythm of ocean currents outside it was peace. It was mine. Later that night, as we cleaned up after dinner, Killian spoke softly. Have you thought any more about what I asked you last month? I froze a dish suspended halfway to the drying rack. Killian, I began, but he cut in quickly. I know the timing's messy with everything happening with your family, but I meant what I said. I want to spend my life with you, Julia. He had proposed 4 weeks ago right here in this same kitchen. Nothing flashy, no grand gestures. Just him holding my hands, looking at me like I was his whole world and saying he wanted forever. I had asked for time, and he had given it patiently, quietly, without pressure. But tonight something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the pain of being unwanted by my own family, or maybe it was realizing that this man, this steady, kind man, chose me without hesitation. Yes, I said. He blinked. What? Yes, I repeated, smiling. Yes, I want to marry you. The dish slipped from his hand and clattered back into the sink. He crossed the kitchen in 2 quick strides, wrapped me in his arms, and lifted me clean off the floor. When he finally set me down, he was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. You're serious? You're saying yes? I'm saying yes. I laughed. He kissed me, and for the first time in days, the tight knot of hurt in my chest began to unwind. This man saw me. Truly saw me. He valued my mind, my passion, my purpose. With him, I didn't have to twist myself into someone else's version of perfect. We should celebrate, he said, then hesitated. Wait, do you want to tell your family? I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. No, I said firmly. They made it clear I'm not part of Vanessa's celebration. I don't need them involved in mine. What about your friends? He asked. I smiled slowly. That's different. And actually, I have an idea. Over the next week, I threw myself into planning not a grand wedding like Vanessa's overproduced vineyard spectacle. I didn't want a stage. I wanted substance. Something real. Something that reflected who Killian and I actually were. My first call was to Bethany, my cousin, and the only family member I'd ever truly liked. Maybe because she too had grown up in Vanessa's golden shadow. You're getting married, she squealed over the phone. Julia, that's incredible. When? 8 weeks from now, I said. Right after Vanessa's wedding. There was a beat of silence, then a gasp. Your mom doesn't know, does she? Nope. Oh, this is delicious, she said, her voice gleeful. Tell me everything. I told her about Killian, about the proposal, about my plan for a small, intimate ceremony that felt like us. Bethany had met Killian once at a coffee shop and declared him absolutely perfect for you, and she hadn't been wrong. Who else knows? She asked. Just you, I said. But I'm planning something a little unconventional. I like the sound of that, Bethany had said. Over the next few days, I reached out to the people who actually mattered, the ones who'd seen me for who I was not, who I failed to be. My research team at the Marine Biology Center, old friends from grad school, colleagues I'd worked alongside on coral reef restoration and conservation projects, scientists I admired, mentors who had shaped the path I walked. And then I made a call that would change everything, Dr. Patricia Lawrence. A legend in marine biology, I'd admired her since I was 16, poring over her groundbreaking papers on ocean acidification, dreaming of following in her footsteps. She'd spoken at a Seattle conference 2 years ago, and I'd mustered the courage to introduce myself afterward. Since then, we'd kept in touch, exchanging the occasional email about research breakthroughs. Julia, she answered, her warm voice instantly familiar. What a lovely surprise, Dr. Lawrence. I have a bit of an unusual favor to ask. I'm intrigued already, she said with a smile in her tone. I told her everything. Family drama, the uninvitation. My idea to create a wedding that wasn't about pretense or appearances, but about connection, about celebrating the people and purpose that had become my true home. There was a short pause, then she said, I'd be honored to attend, my dear, but actually, I have a better idea. A better idea? She laughed softly. Let me make some calls. Calls? I repeated, confused. Trust me, Julia. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Something in her voice sent a spark of excitement racing through me. I had no idea what she was planning, but for the first time in months, I felt a thrilling sense of possibility. Meanwhile, Vanessa's wedding had become a full-blown production. My phone buzzed constantly with updates I wasn't supposed to see. Bethany kept forwarding me screenshots from the family group chat, part spy and mischief maker. Your mother just sent 3 paragraphs about napkin. Folds, one message read, Vanessa's having a meltdown because the florist brought cream roses instead of white, said another. It was like watching a reality show I hadn't signed up for. A few months ago, being excluded from all that would have crushed me. Now I mostly felt relieved. Relieved that I wouldn't have to sit through 5 hours of staged perfection and brittle smiles. My own plans, on the other hand, were quietly coming to life. Dr. Lawrence had kept her word, and whatever calls she'd made had rippled, farther than I could have dreamed. 3 of the most respected marine biologists in the field confirmed they'd be attending. A documentary filmmaker who'd once featured my coral research said she wouldn't miss it for the world. Even a National Geographic photographer I'd worked with in Australia sent back an enthusiastic, "Count me in," Julia Killian said one evening as we reviewed the growing guest list. Do you realize who these people are? I smiled. Scientists, mentors, friends. He shook his head, laughing softly. Some of the most respected ocean conservation researchers in the world are coming to our wedding. There are people on this list with Wikipedia pages, Killian said, eyebrows raised. I shrugged, but inside something warm unfurled in my chest. These were people who valued what I did, who saw my research as meaningful, who believed I mattered. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. The wedding venue had come together almost as if the universe itself had conspired to help. One of my colleagues at the research center offered his family's property on Whidbey Island, a quiet stretch of beach with sweeping views of the Puget Sound. Nothing fancy. Just open sky, salt air, and the sound of the waves. When I showed Bethany the photos, she grinned. It's so you. Your mom would absolutely hate it. That's not why I'm doing this, I said, smiling. I know, she teased, but it's a nice bonus. Killian's family planned to fly in from Ireland. His mother even called me personally, her voice warm and sincere as she welcomed me into their family. When I hung up, I sat on the couch and cried, not from sadness, but from the sheer unfamiliarity of being loved so easily. The difference between her kindness and my family's cold detachment was like sunlight and shadow. 2 weeks before Vanessa's wedding, I ran into my father at a downtown coffee shop. For a second, he looked startled, like he'd just bumped into an old coworker he barely remembered. Julia, how are you? I'm fine, Dad, I said evenly. You've been busy with work, I assume? Your sister's big day is almost here, I heard. An awkward silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. I waited just long enough to see if he'd mention the uninvitation or the message or even offer a simple, I'm sorry. But he didn't. Well, he said, finally shifting his cup. I should get going. Good to see you, and that was it. He walked away without asking about my life, my research, my happiness, nothing. I watched him disappear into the crowd and felt nothing, just a quiet, steady sense of closure. This was who he was, who they all were. And for the first time, I was done wishing for anything different. Vanessa's wedding day arrived on a bright June Saturday. The sky was flawless, the air warm and clear. Killian and I spent the day at the beach on Whidbey Island, swimming in the icy water and finalizing our own ceremony plans. My phone buzzed throughout the afternoon, Bethany sending me photos. The vineyard wrapped in cascading white flowers. Vanessa in a gown that looked straight out of a royal catalog. Guests posing with champagne flutes. It looks beautiful, Killian said, peering over my shoulder. It does, I agreed. And it truly did. Vanessa looked radiant. The setting was stunning. Everything appeared perfect, and the strangest part? I felt no bitterness. Somewhere between being rejected and building something of my own, the resentment had quietly dissolved. That evening, Bethany called. So your mom asked where you were today, she said clearly, trying not to laugh. What? Did you tell her? Nothing. I just said I hadn't seen you. But Julia seemed confused. Like she genuinely couldn't believe you wouldn't show up anyway uninvited. Like she expected you to come crawling just for a seat in the back. I let out a short laugh. That sounds about right. The whole thing was exactly what you'd expect, Bethany said over the phone. Lots of speeches about how perfect Vanessa is, how successful Gregory is, how proud your parents are. Not one mention of you. Obviously, I said dryly. Obviously, she echoed. Your mom even said it was the wedding of her dreams. That everything was flawless. Bethany paused. Her voice softened. Jewel, I'm really glad you didn't come. You would have hated it, I smiled faintly. Yeah, I said. I think I would have. Because while Vanessa had her 5-tier cake and rented perfection, I had something infinitely better, something real. I was building a life, a celebration that actually meant something. My wedding wasn't about appearances. It was about connection, about the people who saw me. 3 days after Vanessa's grand spectacle, my phone rang. Dr. Patricia Lawrence's name lit up the screen. Julia, she greeted warmly. I've been contacted by someone quite interesting, a producer from a major streaming platform that creates documentary content. My pulse quickened. Really? Really, she said, clearly delighted. They're developing a series on ocean conservation efforts, and they want to feature your coral reef research. I blinked. Wait, seriously? Very seriously, she said, laughing softly. They were impressed by your paper on reef regeneration. They think your work, your story would make powerful content. They want to film your research, interview your team, even capture some personal moments. I leaned back, trying to absorb it all. Personal moments? Yes. They asked if there were any upcoming significant events in your life. A slow smile spread across my face. Actually, I said, there might be. I thought so, she replied knowingly. I may have mentioned you were getting married soon. My breath caught. They want to feature it, Julia, she continued. A wedding that brings together ocean conservation researchers showing the human side of science. The love, the purpose, the people behind the mission. They think it could be beautiful. I stared out the window at the gray-blue shimmer of the Sound, imagining it, a quiet beach, waves rolling in sunlight on water, surrounded by people who believed in me. Tell them yes, I said. Dr. Lawrence's smile was audible even through the phone. Excellent. I'll make the arrangements. Oh, and Julia? They have a substantial social media presence. Millions of followers. Everything they feature tends to go viral. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the silence humming with possibility. Killian found me sitting on the couch, staring into space. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I said slowly. Something's just very right. The production team arrived on Whidbey Island 3 days before the wedding. They were smaller than I expected, just 5 people, cameras in tow, led by a woman named Sophia who radiated calm. Professionalism. We're not here to make this into a spectacle, she said in our first meeting, adjusting her headset with a gentle smile. We just want to tell your story honestly, quietly, beautifully. Her sincerity eased my nerves. They spent the next days filming interviews with my colleagues and mentors. There were shots of us examining coral samples, discussing restoration, strategies, laughing over old fieldwork memories. Every time I caught a glimpse of the footage on their monitor sunlight, glinting off microscopes, waves lapping against our equipment, I felt something heal inside me. This was my world, my purpose, my truth. The night before the wedding, we had dinner around a bonfire on the beach. Dr. Lawrence shared stories from her early days in research. Killian's mother told childhood stories that had everyone laughing, and Sophia's crew filmed in soft focus, capturing the golden light as it faded into twilight. It was simple, genuine, perfect in a way that Vanessa's pristine vineyard could never be. The morning of the ceremony dawned misty and bright. Seagulls called overhead as the team set up cameras discreetly around the beach. My dress was modest, a flowy linen design light enough to move with the wind. Killian stood barefoot in the sand, his tie slightly crooked, his smile steady as. The ceremony began, the air filled with the scent of salt and wildflowers. When I looked around, I saw people who had built coral nurseries in monsoon rains, who had pulled plastic waste from the ocean with their bare hands, who had stood beside me through long, thankless nights of research and failure. Every face there reflected something real. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the overlooked daughter. I felt whole. Sophia's team moved quietly, capturing laughter vows, the sound of waves against our feet. They filmed Killian whispering something that made me laugh through tears. They filmed Dr. Lawrence hugging me after the ceremony, telling me she'd never been prouder. It was everything I'd ever wanted and nothing I'd ever been allowed to have. A few weeks later, the documentary episode went live. It was called Waves of Change, the Scientist Who Chose the Sea. The 30-minute feature blended footage of my research with the wedding, the vows intertwined with shots of coral blooms, ocean currents, and the people fighting to preserve them. It was raw, emotional, beautiful, and it exploded online. Millions of views in days. Interviews, invitations to conferences, messages from people around the world, students, activists, young scientists saying the story inspired them. And then inevitably, my phone buzzed again. From Mom. Julia, your wedding was beautiful. We saw the documentary. Your father and I had no idea your work was so important. Everyone's talking about it. I stared at the message for a long time. Once upon a time, I would have given anything to hear those words. But now, they meant nothing, because I finally understood I didn't need their approval. I never had. I set the phone down, turned toward the window, and watched the waves rolling in. Killian came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. What are you thinking? He murmured. I smiled. That I finally stopped chasing people who never intended to see me. We want to capture something authentic, Sophia explained, adjusting her camera lens as the sun dipped lower across the bay. The connection between personal commitment and professional dedication, love and conservation intertwined. Killian and I led the team across the beach, the afternoon light spilling gold across the sand. The tide was low, the water still enough to mirror the sky in perfect calm. A few gulls circled overhead. It felt almost sacred. This is where the ceremony will be, I told her, pointing toward the shoreline. Simple white chairs in a semicircle facing the water. No arches, no ribbons, just the coastline as it is. Sophia framed the view with her hands smiling. It's perfect, real, the way nature intended. She turned back to me. Can you tell me about some of your guests? I handed her the list. As her eyes scanned down the names, her expression shifted from curiosity to astonishment. Dr. Patricia Lawrence. Professor James Okoye, Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She looked up. Julia, do you realize this is basically the Avengers of marine conservation? These are global icons, I shrugged, smiling. They're my mentors. My friends? Sophia shook her head, laughing softly. Your wedding is going to break the internet. A young scientist marrying the love of her life surrounded by the world's leading ocean researchers? It's inspiring, it's wholesome, it's cinematic. Over the next few days, her team filmed everything: sunrises over the water, close-ups of tide pools, drone shots sweeping over the cliffs. They interviewed early arriving guests about ocean preservation and recorded snippets of laughter and shared memories when they filmed Killian and me walking along the shore barefoot in the cool surf, talking about coral regeneration and the future of marine science. It didn't feel staged. It felt true. They weren't creating a show. They were documenting a life we had built from purpose and love. 2 days before the ceremony, Killian's family arrived from Ireland. His mother spotted me first, and before I could even say hello, she pulled me into a hug that smelled of lavender and home. "Oh, Julia, you're even lovelier than in the pictures," she said, her eyes shining. His father clasped my hand firmly, his smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Welcome to the family, lass," he said in his thick accent. "Our boy's done well." And then came his sisters, 3 whirlwinds of laughter and energy. "Finally," Siobhan, the oldest, exclaimed. "Another woman in the family. We've been outnumbered by brothers-in-law for far too long." That night, we gathered for dinner at a cozy seaside restaurant. The film crew captured snippets of it, the sound of clinking glasses, the warmth of stories traded across the table, the deep, easy comfort of family. Killian's mother told embarrassing childhood stories that had everyone in stitches. His father raised a glass and toasted to the brilliant woman who somehow agreed to marry our boy. I laughed until my cheeks hurt. For once, the word family didn't sting. It felt whole. Then, during a lull in the conversation, I slipped away to the restroom and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom. I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race, not this time. Just a quiet curiosity. After a moment, I opened the voicemail. "Julia, your father and I heard a rumor that you're getting married this weekend." Her voice was tight, that familiar mix of control and disbelief. "Is it true? Why didn't you tell us? You can't possibly mean to exclude your own parents." "Call me back immediately. We need to discuss this." I put the phone down on the counter and looked at my reflection. For years, that voice could command my obedience, could make me feel small, guilty, lesser. But now standing there, in the soft bathroom light wearing a sundress, that still smelled of salt and sea air, I felt nothing but calm. They had uninvited me from their celebration. Now they were desperate to be part of mine. I smiled faintly, tucked the phone back into my bag, and returned to the table, to laughter, to warmth, to the people who had actually shown up for me. Obviously, that couldn't possibly be true, because surely you would have told us about something so important. But Bethany mentioned something, and now I'm concerned. "Call me back immediately." The second voicemail had no trace of concern, just command. "Julia, this is ridiculous. If you're really planning some kind of wedding, you need to inform your family. We have a right to know these things. And frankly, after we just spent a fortune on Vanessa's beautiful wedding, the least you could do is give us some warning before planning your own." The third message made me laugh out loud. I spoke with Bethany again. "She says you really are getting married on Saturday. On a beach of all places. Julia, what on earth are you thinking? A beach wedding? That's far too casual. And apparently you've invited complete strangers but not your own family. This is completely unacceptable. Call me. Delete. Delete. Delete." I slipped my phone into my bag and walked back to the table where Killian's mother was, showing old photos of their house in County Cork, white walls, green hills, and sunlight that looked like home. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to explain myself to anyone. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. "Bethany, your mom is losing it," she said, sounding half guilty and half entertained. "She's been calling everyone trying to get details about your wedding." "I got her messages," I said. "Are you going to call her back?" "No." "Good," she said. "She doesn't deserve to be part of it." There was a pause. I could tell she was hesitating. "Jules, I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. "What now?" "Vanessa knows," she said quietly. "About the wedding. And about the documentary crew." I went still. "How?" "Someone from the production company posted a teaser, just a vague promo about an upcoming episode featuring ocean conservation researchers. But they tagged the island. And you know Vanessa? She follows every wedding venue in the Pacific Northwest so she can judge other people's weddings." "Of course she did. She put 2 and 2 together," Bethany continued. "And well, she's furious." "Furious?" I repeated, almost amused. "Apparently she thinks you're doing this to upstage her," Bethany said. "She called me demanding to know why you're having some kind of media-covered wedding right after hers. I told her she was being paranoid, but she's convinced. You're doing this to spite her." I leaned back in my chair, smiling, faintly. For once, Vanessa wasn't wrong. I actually laughed, the sound surprising even me. Everything isn't about her, I said. Bethany sighed. Try telling her that. Your entire family is in chaos right now. They're saying you're being cruel on purpose, that you're stealing Vanessa's spotlight, that you're selfish and desperate for attention. They're projecting, I said simply. Oh, absolutely. But Jules, her voice lowered, I think they might try to crash the wedding. I thought about it for a moment, then shrugged. Let them come. They're not on the guest list. But if they want to embarrass themselves in front of some of the most respected scientists in the world, that's their choice. Bethany laughed nervously. You're scary when you're this calm. I'm just done being hurt by them, I said. Whatever they do now only shows who they are, not who I am. The day before the wedding, Dr. Lawrence arrived not alone, but with a convoy of brilliant minds trailing behind her. From the beach house window I watched, a line of cars pull up and out stepped people whose names filled academic journals, scientists who'd rewritten environmental policy, who had literally changed how the world understood the ocean, and now they were here. For my wedding, Dr. Lawrence found me out on the deck. Julia, she said warmly, I brought someone very special. She turned, revealing a woman with silver, hair-steady posture and eyes so sharp they seemed to see through time itself. Dr. Elizabeth Ramos, she said. I nearly froze. This woman's research on ocean acidification had influenced international law. Dr. Ramos reached out to shake my hand. I've read your papers on coral bleaching, she said. Very impressive work. You're asking the right questions. Thank you, I said, my voice unsteady. That means a lot coming from you. Patricia smiled knowingly. She tells me your family doesn't appreciate your work. The directness caught me off guard. That's true, I admitted. Then they're fools, Dr. Ramos said without hesitation. Her eyes softened. But look around, Julia. You've already built a family, one that values your mind, your passion, your purpose. That's worth more than any blood tie that refuses to see your worth. For the first time in days, I felt tears gather in my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. That evening, as the sun sank behind the waves, the documentary crew began filming interviews with the guests. I stood quietly on the sidelines, watching Dr. Lawrence speak, passionately about ocean, conservation, about the future of the field, and how my research symbolized hope for the next generation. Then, Professor Okoye spoke, talking about the need for more young women in science like Julia, she said, smiling. At me, it was surreal, a lifetime of being underestimated. And suddenly I was surrounded by people who saw me. As the lights dimmed and the waves grew louder, Sophia came over, her expression serious. Julia, she said softly, I need you to understand something. This content is going to reach millions. Sophia said, her tone both excited and cautious. Our platform has a massive following. And your story, this wedding, your work, the community you've built, it's exactly the kind of narrative people connect with. Are you ready for that kind of attention? I paused, thinking of my family, their obsession with appearances, their desperate need to be admired, their quiet shame of me. They hadn't invited me to Vanessa's perfect wedding because I didn't fit the image they wanted the world to see. I smiled faintly. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Saturday morning rose in a wash of gold and salt air. I woke to the sound of the ocean whispering outside the beach house, the rhythmic crash of waves steadying my heartbeat. Bethany was still asleep in the other bed, her hair tangled and her arm draped dramatically over her face. When she finally stirred, she blinked at me and grinned. Big day, she murmured. How are you feeling? Good, I said. Really good, actually. No nerves? About marrying Killian? None, she raised an eyebrow. About your family possibly crashing the wedding? I hesitated. Maybe a little. She sat up, instantly alert. If they show up, I'll deal with them. You just focus on being happy. You deserve that. The production team arrived early, cameras in hand, capturing the calm before the celebration. They filmed me slipping into my dress, a simple white gown, no glitter or lace, just clean lines and soft fabric that moved like sea foam. It wasn't a performance. It was me. Bethany styled my hair into loose waves that framed my face. You look beautiful, she said softly. But more importantly, you look at peace. By 3 o'clock, the first guests began to arrive. Through the window, I watched a parade of rental cars pull up, releasing clusters of brilliant minds. Scientists from around the globe greeting one another with joy, laughter, and the unspoken bond of shared purpose. The eye. Cameras caught everything. Their smiles, their conversations. About coral restoration and climate policy, their hope for the future, and then I saw it. A silver car pulling up behind the others. My mother. My father, Vanessa, Gregory, even from a distance. I could read the story written across my mother's face, the stiff posture, the pursed lips, the faint wrinkle of disgust, as her eyes swept over the casual beach setup. They actually came, Bethany said beside me, incredulous. Of course they did, I murmured. They can't stand the thought of being left out. Sophia appeared at the door, tablet in hand. Julia, there are a few people here who aren't on the guest list. They say they're your family. I looked out the window once more. They are. Do you want us to have them removed? She asked carefully. I paused, a smile slowly curving across my lips. No, I said. Seat them in the back. And Sophia, yes? Make sure your cameras catch their reactions. Sophia's eyes glimmered with understanding. I like the way you think. The ceremony was set for 5 o'clock, perfect timing for the golden light to dance on the waves. I waited inside the beach house, the gentle wind, carrying the sound of laughter from the shore while Killian took his place by the water's edge. Through the wide beach house window, I could see the gathering in full view, over 100. Guess their faces glowing in the golden light. Many were instantly recognizable. Authors of groundbreaking papers, speakers whose TED Talks had inspired millions, the very people shaping the future of ocean science. And in the very last row, looking small and stiff amid all that brilliance, sat my family, out of place, out of depth, and visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Lawrence appeared at the door, her smile gentle but proud. Ready? She asked. More than ever, I said. She hesitated. Would you let me walk you down the aisle? I know I'm not your father, but it would mean a lot. Emotion tightened my throat. My father was only 20 yards away, but in truth, he had never walked beside me in anything that mattered. Dr. Lawrence had been the one guiding me, encouraging me, believing in me when no one else did. I'd love that, I said quietly. We stepped together onto the sand, the salty breeze tugging at my dress as we moved through the aisle lined with white chairs. Ahead of me stood Killian, eyes shining with emotion. His family smiled proudly in the front row. My colleagues, my real family, beamed encouragement from every side, and then just beyond them, I saw my mother's face. Her expression shifted rapidly, confusion, disbelief, then the dawning realization of who she was surrounded by. Every person around her was someone she might have bragged about knowing, yet none of them were hers. The ceremony began, led by a retired marine biology professor who had once taught both Killian and me in graduate school. His voice carried warmly over the sound of waves. He spoke about the sea, about tides that draw distant things together, about the currents that shape destiny, about finding someone whose soul moves in rhythm with your own purpose. Then it was time for the vows. When I looked at Killian, every trace of doubt or pain from my past dissolved. I promise to support your research, I began, even when it takes you to the farthest corners of the ocean. I promise to celebrate every discovery, to stand by you through every storm. I promise to be your partner in science and life and in saving the waters we both love. And above all, I promise to build a life rooted in what we value, not what anyone else expects of us. Killian's voice wavered as he began his Irish lilt, thick with emotion. I promise to truly see you, he said, to honor your brilliance and your heart in equal measure, to stand beside you as you change the world, to remind you of your worth when others forget it, and to love you, exactly as you are, never asking you to be anyone else. We exchanged simple silver rings, no diamonds, no excess, just symbols of something pure and enduring. And when our lips met, the sun was sinking low, gilding the waves in fire and rose. The guests rose to their feet, applause breaking like surf, not polite, restrained clapping, but wild, joyful celebration. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen, not as a disappointment, not as someone to hide, but as someone worthy of being celebrated. The reception unfolded, right there on the sand, the waves whispering against the shore as twilight deepened. There was no stiff seating chart, no crystal chandeliers, just long wooden tables, flickering lanterns, and platters of grilled seafood that filled the air with the scent of salt and smoke. Guests wandered freely, laughing, clinking glasses, and swapping stories. It was vibrant, alive, exactly the opposite of Vanessa's manicured perfection. The production crew glided among the tables, cameras catching every spontaneous moment, a Nobel laureate deep in conversation with a first-year grad student, a filmmaker chatting animatedly with a research assistant, laughter rippling like tidewater through the crowd. Then I saw her, my mother, hovering uncertainly near one of the tables, her designer heels sinking slightly into the sand. She leaned toward a tall man, animatedly describing deep-sea ecosystems. "And how do you know the bride?" she asked, her tone polite but edged with curiosity. He smiled warmly. "Julia and I co-authored a paper on coral bleaching in the South Pacific." "Brilliant woman. Her data on adaptive resilience is groundbreaking. It's going to redefine our models." He extended a hand. "Dr. James Okoye. I teach at Oxford." The color drained from her face. She drifted away, composure cracking, and stumbled into another circle, this one anchored by Dr. Lawrence herself. "Julia," Dr. Lawrence was saying proudly, "is one of the most promising young scientists I've met in decades. Her work blends precision with passion. She's shaping how we think about ocean conservation." My mother's lips parted, but no words came. Vanessa stood nearby, smiling too, tightly trying to reclaim her effortless grace. But the mask was slipping. A woman turned to her and said kindly, "Are you a scientist too?" Vanessa blinked. "No, I work in marketing," she replied, her voice brittle. "Oh, lovely," the woman said cheerfully. "Julia's research is extraordinary. We featured her coral reef work in National Geographic last year, breathtaking imagery." I saw Gregory lean close to Vanessa, murmuring something urgent, his expression dark. They were realizing too late that this wasn't some amateur beach wedding. It was a congregation of influence and intellect, a celebration of genuine achievement. Bethany appeared beside me, eyes sparkling. "Your mom just asked me who all these people are," she whispered. "I told her they're your friends, the ones who actually matter." I thought she might faint. "Good," I said softly. Killian slipped his arm around me as dusk fell and a bonfire flared to life, flames painting the faces of our guests in gold and amber. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Completely," I murmured. "Even with my family here?" I looked toward the back where my parents stood stiff and silent, lost amid easy laughter and conversation they couldn't begin to join. For the first time, they were seeing the truth that I had built a world far greater than the one they'd denied me, and I wasn't excluded anymore. They were. The evening rolled on in waves of toasts and laughter, the sound of the ocean underscoring every word. Dr. Lawrence took the stage first, his voice calm yet commanding as he spoke about the future of ocean conservation and the brilliant, fearless generation determined to defend it. Then Professor Okoye followed, his words rich with conviction, as he highlighted the importance of uplifting women in science, of giving them the space to lead. Killian's mother lightened the mood, sharing a funny memory about the first time her son had called home, gushing about this incredible scientist who'd changed his life. Then Sophia approached with the microphone, her tone soft but excited. "Julia," she said, smiling, "would you share a few words for the documentary?" The crowd turned toward me. The crackling bonfire reflected on their faces, and suddenly I realized this wasn't just for them. Millions would eventually hear these words. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight." I began, my voice steady but full of emotion. "Most of you know each other, marine biologists, oceanographers, conservationists, people who've devoted their lives to understanding and protecting our oceans." I caught sight of my mother in the glow of the flames, her face pale, her expression finally shifting as she grasped who these people really were. "Grew up feeling invisible," I continued. "Like my work, my passion for the ocean didn't matter. Like what I loved most was somehow embarrassing." I paused, my throat tight. For years, I believed that maybe I was the problem. Killian squeezed my hand. His touch grounded me. But then I found this community. People who measure success not by titles or wealth, but by impact. People who value questions more than appearances. People who see worth in dedicating your life to something greater than yourself. I scanned the faces around me, friends, mentors, and heroes. You've shown me that family isn't just blood. It's who shows up, who celebrates your wins, who sees you for who you truly are. Applause erupted, genuine and thunderous. Sophia's eyes shimmered as she took back the mic, clearly moved. Moments later, my father approached me, his face unreadable. "Julia," he said quietly, "I had no idea you were connected to so many distinguished people." "Why would you?" I replied evenly. "You never asked about my work." He looked stunned. "That's not fair, isn't it, Dad?" I said softly. "When was the last time you even tried to understand what I do?" He had no answer. Then came my mother, her composure finally cracking like glass. Julia, if we'd known you were organizing something of this scale. What? I cut in. You'd have suddenly cared? Suddenly seen me as someone worth your attention? Don't be dramatic, she snapped. We've always cared about you. I felt strangely calm. You uninvited me from Vanessa's wedding because you said I'd ruin the atmosphere. You told me I was an embarrassment. I never used that word. You didn't have to, I said quietly. You've been showing me that my whole life. For the first time, my voice didn't shake. I'm not angry anymore, Mom. I'm just done. Done begging for approval from people who already decided I'm not enough. Vanessa appeared then, Gregory at her side, her expression cold and cutting. Julia, this is all very impressive, she said. But did you really have to plan it right after my wedding? It feels deliberately spiteful. I met her eyes without flinching. Vanessa, I got engaged before you ever did. I just didn't tell you. And I planned a wedding that reflects what Killian and I actually value, not what looks best in a magazine. The silence that followed was deafening. Only the ocean spoke, waves whispering behind me like a quiet applause. None of this was ever about you, I said, my voice steady but sharp enough to cut glass. My mother's lips tightened. Then why the documentary crew? Why all these important people? Why make such a spectacle out of it? This isn't a spectacle, I replied coldly. This is my life. These are the people who stood by me when you didn't. I gestured toward the beach where world-renowned scientists laughed. Around the bonfire, their conversations glowing brighter than the flames. I'm sorry if it unsettles you that I built something real, something meaningful, but your discomfort isn't my responsibility anymore. Gregory tried to chime in, his voice trembling under forced politeness. I think what Vanessa means is it all feels deliberate, like you're trying to prove something. I turned to him, my eyes calm, but unflinching. I'm not proving anything. I'm living everything you told me I couldn't. I don't need your validation anymore. Not from any of you. Bethany appeared beside me like a wall of quiet strength. I think that's your cue to leave, she said evenly. We're family, my mother protested weakly. You can watch me. I said, but you don't get to belong here. You shut me out of Vanessa's wedding because I wasn't good enough for your image. Now you're the ones who don't fit mine. Fair, isn't it? No one spoke. Their silence said more than their excuses ever could. They turned and left, faces tight, voices low, as their car disappeared into the darkness. I watched their taillights fade like a chapter closing. For the first time in years, I felt nothing but peace. The night carried on like a celebration of freedom. Killian's sisters led Irish drinking songs. A group of researchers got into a hilarious argument about deep-sea exploration. Laughter mingled with the sound of the surf, and for once I felt surrounded by people who saw me. Near midnight, Killian and I walked down to the shoreline. The moon shimmered over the water, silver and still. No regrets? He asked quietly. None, I said, smiling. Marrying me? Best decision I've ever made, he grinned. Standing up to your family? That, I said with a soft laugh, was satisfying to watch. He pulled me close, and together we watched the waves erase the footprints behind us, just like I had erased their power over me 6 weeks. Later, the documentary dropped. I was at work when my phone exploded with notifications. The episode had gone viral within hours, millions of views, thousands of comments. This is the most authentic wedding I've ever seen. The bride is a genius. Her family didn't even know her. Worth. Anyone else crying because she built her own family? Headlines followed. Marine biologist turns family rejection into global inspiration. A wedding that redefined success, my mother called once. I didn't answer because some revenge doesn't need shouting, screaming, or chaos. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is being everything they said you'd never be. Headlines exploded across every major outlet. Marine biologist's wedding unites global conservation legends. The ceremony that's inspiring a generation of scientists. When your real family is the one you build, someone had even done a detailed breakdown of my guest list, listing every scientist, their discoveries, their awards, turning what was once my quiet world of research into a worldwide fascination. The article was shared hundreds of thousands of times. Overnight, my name wasn't just known in academic circles, it was everywhere. The Marine Biology Center's website crashed under the sudden wave of traffic interview requests poured in from every major news network. Dr. Lawrence called, her voice full of laughter and disbelief. Julia, you've done more for ocean awareness in a single weekend than most of us do in a lifetime. Every outlet wants to talk to you, your work, your vision, your story. I just got married, I said, still trying to process it all. You did, she replied warmly. And you showed millions what real scientists look like. What we stand for. What we fight for. You didn't just have a wedding. Julia, you started a movement. Then my phone buzzed a message from Bethany. Have you seen your family's social media? Curiosity won. I opened the app. Vanessa had posted a long emotional caption about how proud she was of me, how she had always known her little sister was destined for greatness paired with old, filtered photos of us smiling together. The internet didn't buy it for a second. Didn't you just get married? Why make this about you? Your sister literally wasn't invited to your wedding. Lol. This fake support is embarrassing. Then came my mother's post, a shared clip from the documentary with a caption about how blessed she was to have 2 accomplished daughters. The comments were even harsher. The documentary literally says her family never supported her. Maybe try being proud before she became famous. You don't get credit for someone you tried to break. Their desperate attempts to rewrite history only made their hypocrisy viral. The world could see exactly who they were and who I had become despite them. But the spotlight didn't fade. It only grew brighter. The documentary became one of the most watched features on the entire platform. Major networks ran specials about ocean conservation and the global community of scientists who had gathered for our wedding. Then came the offers, a TED Talk invitation, 3 publishing houses asking for a book deal, and a massive private donation sent directly to fund my coral reef project. The donor's note read simply, "Your story reminded me what hope looks like." My inbox overflowed with messages, young women saying they now wanted to study marine biology because they'd seen my story. High school teachers wrote to tell me they'd shown the documentary in their classes. And through it all, my family stayed silent. Their names had become a cautionary tale, proof that sometimes the people who doubt you most are the ones who will have to watch your success on every screen they own, because in the end, I never needed to humiliate them. All I had to do was become everything they refused to see. Environmental groups began inviting me to keynote their conferences. My inbox overflowed with collaborations, partnerships, and invitations to speak around the world. And through it all, my family said nothing. No calls, no messages, just a string of increasingly desperate social media posts, each one trying to tie themselves to my success. Every attempt backfired spectacularly. The public saw right through it, every caption met with skepticism, every "we're so proud" comment torn apart by people who knew the truth. Then, 3 months after the wedding, my phone rang. Mom. For a moment, I almost ignored it. But curiosity and closure made me answer. "Julia," she said, her voice brittle, stripped of its usual confidence. "We need to talk. Do we? Please, just coffee." I could have said no. I probably should have. But the truth was, I wasn't afraid of her anymore. We met at a cafe by the waterfront. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of public judgment had finally settled on her shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly as she stirred her latte, avoiding my eyes. "I've been getting calls," she began quietly. "From friends, people from the country club, your father's colleagues. They've all seen the documentary. Someone made a compilation, all the parts where you said we didn't support you. It's everywhere. People recognize us. They're saying horrible things." I waited. "They're calling us toxic parents," she continued, her voice cracking. "They're saying we emotionally abused you. Your father's company is questioning his character. And Vanessa." She paused, swallowing hard. "Vanessa was let go. Her company said something about not aligning with their values, image concerns. She's been trying to find another job, but once they realize who she is..." A humorless smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Apparently, the internet had turned a clip of Vanessa looking uncomfortable at the wedding into a meme. "That's unfortunate," I said evenly. "Is that all you have to say?" Her voice rose tight with disbelief. "Your sister lost her job. We're being ostracized. Don't you see what this has done to us?" I set my cup down, calm and deliberate. "It hasn't done anything to me," I said. "It's done something to you. And it's not punishment, Mom. It's consequence." She flinched. "We made mistakes," she whispered. But do we really deserve this kind of public humiliation? I met her eyes for the first time. You uninvited me from Vanessa's wedding because you thought I'd ruin your perfect image. You told me I was an embarrassment. You spent my entire life reminding me that I wasn't enough, that my work, my passion, myself didn't meet your standards. I never meant. Yes, you did. I cut in quietly. You meant every word. You just never thought anyone would care enough to listen. You assumed I'd always stay silent, grateful for whatever scraps of approval you threw my way. I leaned forward, my voice calm, measured, deadly honest. But I didn't do this to you. I didn't create a documentary to shame you. I didn't orchestrate a takedown. I simply lived my life surrounded by people who value truth, who celebrate passion, who see me. And for the first time, the world saw me too. I stood up, leaving her staring at the empty chair across from her. You called it humiliation, I said, turning toward the door. I call it honesty finally catching up. The truth hit her like a wave she couldn't swim against. The world's reaction, that's not on me, I told her calmly. That's on you. My mother's eyes darted across the cafe, desperate for sympathy that wasn't coming. So you're not going to help us? She asked, her voice trembling. Help you how? I said. Should I lie for you now? Issue a statement pretending you were perfect parents? Pretend everything was fine? You could at least say we're trying to reconcile, she said, almost pleading. I smiled faintly. But we're not. You haven't apologized. Not once. You're not sorry for what you did, you're sorry people finally saw it. Her expression shifted, her mask cracking. You've become cruel, Julia. No, I said. I've become honest. There's a difference. She stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed your sister's career and our family's reputation. I looked up at her, calm and unshaken. I didn't destroy anything, Mom. I got married. That's all I did. Everything else? I paused, letting her sit with the silence. That's just your real selves finally visible to the world. She left without another word. I finished my coffee alone, watching the ferry glide across the gray water. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. Not revenge through anger, but revenge through truth. 2 weeks later, an email appeared in my inbox. It was from Vanessa. Her tone was different this time, softer, almost human. Julia, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't either, but after losing my job, I've watched that documentary over and over, really watched it. Seeing how we treated you, hearing you talk about being invisible, I'm ashamed. I was part of that. I let it happen because it kept me the favorite. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I read her message 3 times. Part of me wanted to delete it, to let her words vanish just like she used to vanish when I needed her. But I wasn't them. I wasn't going to be bitter, small, or vengeful in the same way they were. I replied, Vanessa, I appreciate your honesty. I don't know what comes next, but I'm open to talk, not because I owe it, but because you're finally facing the truth instead of hiding from it. We met a week later. She looked different, stripped of that perfect image she used to wear like armor. Her confidence was gone, replaced with something real. Guilt. Humanity. I've been in therapy, she said quietly. At first I went because I was angry that I lost everything. But then my therapist made me look deeper at how I helped build this family dynamic that broke you. For the first time in years, I saw something in my sister's eyes that I'd never seen before: regret. And maybe, just maybe, that was the start of a different kind of justice. Vanessa exhaled slowly. I realized I've spent my whole life performing, being the perfect daughter, the successful one, the golden child. I never questioned that my role was built on putting you down. She looked me straight in the eyes. No filters, no excuses. I'm genuinely sorry, Julia. Not because the documentary made me look bad, but because I helped hurt you. I was part of it. It was the first real apology I had ever received from anyone in my family. Thank you, I said softly. That means something. She nodded, eyes glistening. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, maybe not ever, I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. For 2 hours, we talked. Really talked maybe for the first time in our lives. She told me what it was like being the favorite, how exhausting it was to maintain perfection under mom and dad's constant pressure, and I told her what it felt. Like to be a ghost in my own home. Unseen, unheard, and finally found by people who chose to see me. Your wedding looked amazing, she said quietly. Not just the ocean backdrop or the ceremony, but the people. Everyone looked so connected. They were, I said. She looked down. Mine wasn't. My wedding was a $2,000 performance for 300 strangers. Everything was perfect except I wasn't happy. I don't even remember smiling. I was too busy pretending. Do you love him? I asked gently. She hesitated. I don't know. I think I love the idea of him, the image, the success, the checklist marriage. But love? Real love? We barely talk about anything that matters. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. You can change that, you know. You can build something real. It's never too late. Like you did, she whispered. Like you finally did. And for the first time since we were kids, we smiled at each other, not as rivals, not as symbols of our parents' approval, but as sisters. Over the next few months, something remarkable happened. Vanessa and I began to rebuild quietly, carefully. She divorced Gregory. It was mutual, almost peaceful. They'd both realized they were performing, not partnering. She took a job at an environmental nonprofit, a huge pay cut from her corporate world, but for the first time she sounded alive. My parents, however, refused to change. They doubled down, issuing a public statement through a family friend's blog claiming the documentary was lol. This fake support is embarrassing. Then came my mother's post, a shared clip from the documentary, with a caption about how blessed she was to have two accomplished daughters. The comments were even harsher. The documentary literally says her family never supported her. Maybe try being proud before she became famous. Don't get credit for someone you tried to break. Their desperate attempts to rewrite history only made their hypocrisy viral. The world could see exactly who they were and who I had become despite them, but the spotlight didn't fade. It only grew brighter. The documentary became one of the most watched features on the entire platform. Major networks ran specials about ocean conservation and the global community of scientists who had gathered for our wedding. Then came the offers at TED. Talk invitation, 3 publishing houses asking for a book deal, and a massive private donation sent directly to fund my coral reef project. The donor's note read simply, "Your story reminded me what hope looks like." My inbox overflowed with messages, young women saying they now wanted to study marine biology because they'd seen my story. High school teachers wrote to tell me they'd shown the documentary in their classes, and through it all, my family stayed silent. Their names had become a cautionary tale, proof that sometimes the people who doubt you most are the ones who will have to watch your success on every screen they own. Because in the end, I never needed to humiliate them. All I had to do was become everything they refused to see. Environmental groups began inviting me to keynote their conferences. My inbox overflowed with collaborations, partnerships, and invitations to speak around the world. And through it all, my family said, nothing, no calls, no messages, just a string of increasingly desperate social media posts, each one trying to tie themselves to my success. Every attempt backfired spectacularly. The public saw right through it. Every caption met with skepticism. Every "we're so proud" comment torn apart by people who knew the truth. Then 3 months after the wedding, my phone rang. Mom. For a moment, I almost ignored it, but curiosity and closure made me answer. "Julia," she said, her voice brittle, stripped of its usual confidence. "We need to talk." "Do we?" "Please, just coffee." I could have said no. I probably should have. But the truth was I wasn't afraid of her anymore. We met at a cafe by the waterfront. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of public judgment had finally settled on her shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly as she stirred her latte, avoiding my eyes. "I've been getting calls," she began quietly, "from friends, people from the country club, your father's colleagues. They've all seen the documentary. Someone made a compilation, all the parts where you said we didn't support you. It's everywhere. People recognize us. They're saying horrible things. I waited. They're calling us toxic parents, she continued, her voice cracking. They're saying we emotionally abused you. Your father's company is questioning his character. And Vanessa? She paused, swallowing hard. Vanessa was let go. Her company said something about not aligning with their values image concerns. She's been trying to find another job, but once they realize who she is. A humorless smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Apparently, the internet had turned a clip of Vanessa looking uncomfortable at the wedding into a meme. That's unfortunate. I said evenly. Is that all you have to say? Her voice rose tight with disbelief. Your sister lost her job. We're being ostracized. Don't you see what this has done to us? I set my cup down, calm and deliberate. It hasn't done anything to me, I said. It's done something to you. And it's not punishment, Mom. It's consequence. She flinched. We made mistakes, she whispered. But do we really deserve this kind of public humiliation? I met her eyes for the first time. You uninvited me from Vanessa's wedding because you thought I'd ruin your perfect image. You told me I was an embarrassment. You spent my entire life reminding me that I wasn't enough, that my work, my passion, myself didn't meet your standards. I never meant. Yes, you did, I cut in quietly. You meant every word. You just never thought anyone would care enough to listen. You assumed I'd always stay silent, grateful for whatever scraps of approval you threw my way. I leaned forward, my voice calm, measured, deadly honest. But I didn't do this to you. I didn't create a documentary to shame you. I didn't orchestrate a takedown. I simply lived my life surrounded by people who value truth, who celebrate passion, who see me. And for the first time, the world saw me too. I stood up, leaving her staring at the empty chair across from her. You called it humiliation, I said, turning toward the door. I call it honesty finally catching up. The truth hit her like a wave she couldn't swim against. The world's reaction, that's not on me, I told her calmly. That's on you. My mother's eyes darted across the cafe, desperate for sympathy that wasn't coming. So you're not going to help us? She asked, her voice trembling. Help you how? I said. Should I lie for you now? Issue a statement pretending you were perfect parents? Pretend everything was fine? You could at least say we're trying to reconcile, she said, almost pleading. I smiled faintly. But we're not. You haven't apologized, not once. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry people finally saw it. Her expression shifted, her mask cracking. You've become cruel, Julia. No, I said. I've become honest. There's a difference. She stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed your sister's career and our family's reputation. I looked up at her, calm and unshaken. I didn't destroy anything, Mom. I got married. That's all I did. Everything else? I paused, letting her sit with the silence. That's just your real selves finally visible to the world. She left without another word. I finished my coffee alone, watching the ferry glide across the gray water. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. Not revenge through anger, but revenge through truth. 2 weeks later, an email appeared in my inbox. It was from Vanessa. Her tone was different this time. Softer, almost human. Julia, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't either. But after losing my job, I've watched that documentary over and over, really watched it. Seeing how we treated you, hearing you talk about being invisible, I'm ashamed. I was part of that. I let it happen because it kept me the favorite. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I read her message 3 times. Part of me wanted to delete it, to let her words vanish just like she used to vanish when I needed her. But I wasn't them. I wasn't going to be bitter, small, or vengeful in the same way they were. I replied, Vanessa, I appreciate your honesty. I don't know what comes next, but I'm open to talk, not because I owe it, but because you're finally facing the truth instead of hiding from it. We met a week later. She looked different, stripped of that perfect image she used to wear like armor. Her confidence was gone, replaced with something real. Guilt. Humanity. I've been in therapy, she said quietly. At first I went because I was angry that I lost everything. But then my therapist made me look deeper at how I helped build this family dynamic that broke you. For the first time in years, I saw something in my sister's eyes that I'd never seen before: regret. And maybe, just maybe, That was the start of a different kind of justice. Vanessa exhaled slowly. I realized I've spent my whole life performing being the perfect daughter, the successful one, the golden child. I never questioned that my role was built on putting you down. She looked me straight in the eyes, no filters, no excuses. I'm genuinely sorry, Julia. Not because the documentary made me look bad, but because I helped hurt you. I was part of it. It was the first real apology I had ever received from anyone in my family. Thank you, I said softly. That means something, she nodded, eyes glistening. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, maybe not ever. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. For 2 hours we talked. Really talked, maybe. For the first time in our lives. She told me what it was like being the favorite, how exhausting it was to maintain perfection under mom and dad's constant pressure, and I told her what it felt like to be a ghost in my own home, unseen, unheard, and finally found by people who chose to see me. Your wedding looked amazing, she said quietly. Not just the ocean backdrop or the ceremony, but the people. Everyone looked so connected. They were, I said. She looked down. Mine wasn't. My wedding was a $2,000 performance for 300 strangers. Everything was perfect except I wasn't happy. I don't even remember smiling. I was too busy pretending. Do you love him? I asked gently. She hesitated. I don't know. I think I love the idea of him, the image, the success, the checklist marriage. But love, real love, we barely talk about anything that matters. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. You can change that, you know. You can build something real. It's never too late. Like you did, she whispered. Like you finally did. And for the first time since we were kids, we smiled. At each other, not as rivals, not as symbols of our parents' approval, but as sisters. Over the next few months, something remarkable happened. Vanessa and I began to rebuild quietly, carefully. She divorced Gregory. It was mutual, almost peaceful. They'd both realized they were performing, not partnering. She took a job at an environmental nonprofit, a huge pay cut from her corporate world, but I'll think about it, I said quietly. At the door, he turned back one last time. For what it's worth, he said, voice thick. That wedding of yours, it was beautiful. Those people, the things they said about you and your work, I should have been the one saying them all along. When he left, Killian appeared in the doorway, watching me gently. How do you feel? I looked down at the trophy still in my hands. Honestly? I don't know. Part of me wants to believe he's genuine. Part of me thinks it's just damage control. Killian smiled softly. Maybe it's both, I nodded. Maybe it is. I placed the trophy back on the shelf, not as a symbol of his validation, but of mine. And in that moment, I realized my revenge was never about destroying them. It was about reclaiming myself. People aren't simple. They hide behind masks of pride, guilt, and control. My therapist once told me I didn't owe him anything, not a conversation, not forgiveness. And for a long time, I believed that. What do you want? Killian asked me one night. I thought about it for a while before answering. I want to stay open to the idea that people can change, but not be foolish enough to expect it. I want to guard my peace without letting bitterness define me. He smiled. That's strength. Over the next few months, my father did something I never thought he was capable of. He tried. He didn't just ask about my work. He listened. He read my papers, every dry technical word, and tried to understand. He met Killian properly this time, not as a stranger, but as my partner. He showed respect. It was slow, awkward progress, but real. My mother, though, stayed exactly the same. In her mind, she was the victim, the woman wronged by her ungrateful daughter and that biased documentary. She demanded an apology for her humiliation, never realizing she had built her own downfall. Vanessa tried to fix things between us, but how do you build a bridge to someone who refuses to admit they burned it down themselves? She'll never say she was wrong. Vanessa sighed. I know, I said, and I've made peace with that. I don't need her approval anymore. The documentary kept echoing through people's lives. I received hundreds of messages from adults raised by narcissistic parents, people who finally saw that survival didn't mean silence. From young scientists who found courage to chase their dreams without family validation. From women who had felt invisible all their lives but finally saw themselves in my story. A year and a half after that wedding, the film went on to win awards not just for its science, but for its truth. It inspired an entire series highlighting other voices that had been ignored for too long. I was invited to advise on national ocean policy. My team grew. My purpose grew. Killian and I started talking about our own family, a future built not on control or reputation, but love and respect. Meanwhile, my mother's empire of reputation crumbled. The same people who once praised her whispered behind her back now. One by one, the charity boards dropped her name. The spotlight she loved so much turned cold and silent, and for the first time I didn't feel invisible, she did. Her once glittering social circle shrank to just a few loyal souls, people too blind or too proud to see the truth. The rest quietly drifted away, whispering behind closed doors. She spent her days trapped in her own bitterness, painting herself as the victim of a cruel world, never daring to face the reflection that showed who she truly was. My father moved into another room finally, living a life that was his own, distant but peaceful. He kept things polite, focused on rebuilding what little bridge still existed between us. Vanessa, on the other hand, rose higher than any of us expected. She used her skills to fight for the planet, turning her guilt into purpose. For the first time, we weren't rivals. We were sisters, the kind we should have been from the start. And me? I found my peace on the open sea. Standing on the deck of a research vessel in the Pacific, watching the sun melt into the waves I dedicated my life to protecting. Around me were people who respected me, valued me, saw me not for who my parents wanted me to be, but for who I had become. That's when it hit me. The real revenge wasn't the viral documentary. It wasn't the public humiliation or the fall from grace. The real revenge was peace. It was building a life so rich, so purposeful, so authentically mine that their approval no longer mattered. I hadn't just proven them wrong, I'd proven to myself that I never needed them to be right.